stage with members of leaders of tech transfer across our Utah universities. We have Jason Young from the University of Utah, Jerry Hansen from Utah State, you can cheer for your alma mater, and Brad Baugh from Utah Valley University. So I should also note that in the Whova app, if you're using it, you can submit questions. So if you do that, I'll try to work them into our discussion. Let's go ahead with introductions, and we can start with Brad. Will you tell us about your role and how your university approaches tech transfer?
Yeah, so our school is a little bit unique relative to my cohorts here. We happen to be the largest student body population school in Utah. We have over 48,000 students, but we probably have the most nascent tech transfer office, and we're working on changing that. Some of the things that's unique about our school, we're primarily undergraduate school, but we have very good tie-ins with industry practice, and we have some very good stuff in our bio programs. One is we have over 400 of our students do faculty-mentored research, and then one of our premier groups, and we have Dr. Michelle Mooney here with us, who runs our Innova Bio program that works with bio companies to help do research projects, and we have about 20 or 25 students that do that. So that's one of the very unique things that we do at our school.
Great, Jerry, go ahead.
Sure. So I'm actually new to the tech transfer office at Utah State University. The previous director has moved on to greener fields, if you will, and I was asked to take over the tech transfer office in August of last year. So I'm adding that to other things that I'm doing, I'm kind of changing the viewpoint that the university has on tech transfer. Before stepping into this role, I currently still am the Executive Director of Research Development at Utah State University. So I'm looking at tech transfer as part of a life cycle of research at USU. Beginning with research development, ending with tech transfer, I'm building a team in the middle of those two existing teams that's going to be primarily focused on industry engagement. So we have the group that brings in initial funding for research. Certain subset of the faculty will move on to developing industry partnerships, and then a certain subset of those groups will make their way to tech transfer, moving innovations to market. So I'm looking at it as a life cycle. Hopefully, I think every institution has a challenge with changing the culture around tech transfer and getting more faculty members engaged in that. And I'm hoping that sort of having these supports all along the way for our faculty will help spur that change of culture at the institution.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jerry. How about you, Jason?
So Jason Young, Director of Commercialization at the University of Utah. There's been a lot of talk about culture. One of the fortunate things at Utah is that our president, Taylor Randall, came out of the business school, and one of his three main pillars is innovation. And so we're fortunate in that innovation is a priority from the top. And so we're seeing a lot of departments that are now focusing on innovation. They're incorporating that into their metrics and their goals, and that's really beneficial. You probably all can imagine it's been a challenging year with federal funding and everything else going on in the world. But the University of Utah, because of this focus, has done really well in innovation. Last year, I think we had $780 million in research expenditures. We had 530 new invention disclosures. Our startup pipeline, we launched 9 new companies this year with 30 in the pipeline. So innovation is alive and well at the University of Utah because of that priority from the top.
And for scale, Jason, how many people work in tech transfer at University of Utah?
I think we're around 30 to 35. So
Yeah.
we are a larger office.
So in the tech transfer industry, you mostly split into small and large offices. So you have 3 different flavors of smaller office here and then 1 large office. In our office, there are 5 of us. 3 of us do licensing. We have an accountant and kind of an office manager. And despite that, we have pretty high volume. BYU is incredibly entrepreneurial. Our main approach is we're mission driven, and we want to benefit the world as much as we can by getting innovations off campus and out in the world where they can actually help people. So let's talk a little bit about points of strength. Each of the universities has a different sweet spot in life sciences, I believe. So Jerry, do you want to kick us off there? When you're thinking life sciences, what are the technologies that seem to work best for USU?
Got to put my glasses on so I can read my notes and I don't forget anything. So USU has several areas of particular strength. One is in biomaterials. We have researchers working on dyes and bioplastics, films and fibers. We also have a lot of folks doing work in the health-related areas, different health-related areas, such as gene editing and therapeutics, primarily using CRISPR technology. We have individuals doing software to look at health outcomes, in particular landscape design decisions, which is one of the newer technologies that we've rolled out, which is really quite interesting. We have a faculty member working on a contact lens to correct color blindness, which is an interesting thing. I think my brother is colorblind, so hope for him, I guess. We have individuals working on CO2 releasing molecules, using those as therapeutics, and also catalysts for making pharmaceuticals water soluble. In addition to biomaterials and the health-related areas, we have a very long history of animal model work being done at USU, both small and large animals. Our large animals primarily focus on goats and sheep. Small animals, mice obviously is sort of the gold standard for any kind of work with animal models, but also we have hamsters that we have done knockout, gene editing to knock out genes to make them more comparable to humans. So we have mice that are used in nutrition studies, hamsters used in infectious viral disease work. We also have the long-standing Institute for Antiviral Research at USU, and they do pharmaceutical and vaccine testing, both in vitro and in vivo. And then, of course, being the ag school for the state, the land-grant institution, we have a lot of work being done agriculture-wise and plant-wise. So plant reproduction, we run the certified seed breeding program in the Intermountain West. Folks are working on microorganisms as all-natural pest control and fertilizers. And we have a product called Aggie Feed, which is an anti-inflammatory supplement for animals. So to improve the animal feed and reduce the need to use, for instance, antibiotics for animals. And then we are currently rolling out the Utah's first and only 4-year veterinary college, the College of Veterinary Medicine at USU. So we have a lot of faculty coming on. A lot of research is going to be coming out of that particular college, so we're excited to see. That's still very nascent, but excited to see what kind of technologies and innovations are going to be coming out of that group once they get established.
Okay, well, thanks, Jerry. So as you might expect, of the 4, Utah State, a hot spot for agriculture for sure, right? What about, should we do University of Utah next, Jason? What would you say?
Sure, we can do that. So Utah is the only academic medical center, call it, in the Intermountain region, although I hear that's changing in the near future.
Changing soon. Stick around for the next session.
But we'll still be the best. So, yeah, competition's good. But one of the benefits for that is that because of that large referral base, the 6 states kind of in the upper Intermountain region, we have to have specialists in kind of all areas of healthcare. And so we've got experts in whatever, disease state, you might be interested in working in or that a company might want to work in. And so that's beneficial. Obviously, we've got the clinical side of things. One thing I do want to mention is the Data Coordinating Center, the DCC. They're really an end-to-end clinical trial, clinical research services organization. So if you need to run a trial, they can do everything from designing the trial, figuring out the statistics, all the way through submitting data to the FDA. They won't do the application for you. That's something you've got to do, but they can provide the support for those FDA applications. So a lot of clinical expertise that you can lean on. Another center I want to mention is CVRTI, the Cardiovascular Research and Training Institute. Heart failure is the #1 expenditure for Medicare, big problem in healthcare. Diabetes, everything contributes to it. That has some unique models, different ways to test for therapies for heart failure. So again, we've got all the specialties. We've got the Data Coordinating Center, which covers all areas. They're disease agnostic. They do therapeutics, devices, everything. So that broad expertise, but then also we've got some very specialized areas like the CVRTI.
Yeah, great. So definitely a hot spot for medical research. And if you don't work in or near universities, you might not realize how much we work with each other. Like the universities cooperate on things all the time, and it's great to have, like Dean Bridgewater mentioned this morning, Mark Paul and his group up there has been fantastic. So Brad, when you look at UVU, where do the opportunities lie in life sciences?
Yeah, for us, as I sort of mentioned in our introduction, we're unique, slightly unique among the panelists here because of our size, but also the nature as we're growing. We're maturing as a institution, primarily from an undergraduate university, growing more in our graduate programs. So we have less research than my cohorts here, but it's ramping up. We're getting a lot more funding in areas in bioinformatics. But I think one of our greatest strengths is our partnership with industry, with our Innova Bio program and other programs that we do in that area. And then we've also, I know, have a number of projects that we work with the U in utilizing their infrastructure and resources and partnering in various different gene stuff that we're working on and some diagnostic and medical treatment things.
Great. Brad, how many students does UVU have?
We're at over 48,000 now currently, so we are now the biggest in Utah.
Largest student body and a huge opportunity. So for BYU, if we're going to talk about life sciences hotspots, definitely the College of Life Sciences. We've had a surprising number of medical innovations for a university that doesn't have a medical school yet, but soon. And so we've had all kinds of diagnostics. I think Chad Pollard might be speaking right now about Renew and those companies, and have done really well there. Also, computational and mathematical sciences, the chemistry department has spun out things like the CSA compound, antimicrobials, if you've heard of that. One thing we're doing to try to expand the reach and increase, in addition to the medical school, increase the level of life sciences innovation is that our office is reaching out better to nursing and other places on campus that are parts of life sciences, but maybe might not be traditional inventors on campus. So lots of opportunity there. That's a quick rapid fire question. If people ask me all the time, where can I see a list of all of your technologies? If someone wants to look at a technology from your school, where do they look? And I would say people will go to our website. We have hundreds of technologies on there. For low-hanging software technologies, I post them on LinkedIn constantly, but we'll email them. There's probably no substitute for people coming in the office and actually getting to know us. But Jason, how would you answer that one?
Yeah, I'd say the website as well. We've got a great, call it a pie chart. You can narrow it down by area, and you can really focus in on something that you're interested in. Or my team works with researchers every day. We help with IP development and partnership. So if you have an area you're interested in, we have a good sense for what innovation's going on. Come talk to my team, and we can get you that information.
Okay. Jerry, how about USU?
Yeah, website. And we also have some great student interns in our office who are doing a lot of the outreach and can really help folks that are interested in partnering with us at USU understand what our capabilities are, what technologies are available, and help you find somebody to work with if we don't have someone readily available that you find on the website.
Yeah.
Same for us. Our website, but we, as I mentioned, are very nascent in our tech transfer office. In fact, I was brought on about a year ago to help develop it and build it. We realized that in our rapid growth, this was an area that was underserved and needs to be addressed. And so we're in the process of revamping all of that. And I will have to say that Dave's work that he does at BYU, I'm very impressed. He does an excellent job in his social media and other presence of being proactive in getting his inventions out there to the potential licensees.
Thanks, Brad. And we all face the challenge of maintaining a website. People will say, well, why aren't you faster updating the website? But there are all these things we have to do. We don't want to publish something that hasn't been patented yet. We have to, a little caution is required. So that can be a challenge. So Brad, let's start with you. And can we each share some challenge? Like what makes tech transfer challenging right now?
I think for me, particularly in the bio space, and I'm going to do a slight poll, so just to see how many people would say patent subject matter eligibility is an issue? One, okay. So in a panel just before us, Mr. Sproul talked about IP protection. And there is a slight disconnect sometimes between the researchers who are very good at finding interesting problems and then the transitioning of that into a commercialization, which takes protection of IP. And to do that, you have to have good patents. And one of the things that whenever I need my blood pressure to rise, which is never, I think about patent eligibility subject matter. So for those of you, how many lawyers do we have? Oh, my apologies. Don't follow any of these people. They made wrong career choices.
Brad's a lawyer, if you don't know.
I am a lawyer. So I'm going to just give a brief thing on why patent eligibility subject matter is a big problem for the biospace. So, and this, apologies to get into a little bit of law, but it is important, and I'm sure it's something you'll come across. So we had a set of cases coming out, the main one being one Alice case, Supreme Court case 2014, which set the standard how we determine what things should be patented. That's patent eligible subject matter. It falls under the code section 101. So you might hear people refer to it as Alice or patentable subject matter or 101. Those are synonyms for this concept. And what happened is it obliterated certain areas, particularly in software and in biotech, of things that they say, we won't even grant you a patent on this, like diagnostics. If you take a look at the Athena case that they did. And that's a real problem. And the problem is the standard is amorphous. The Supreme Court case of Alice says, when you're determining what something should be patented, is it's eligible to be patented, we look to see if it contains, quote, an abstract idea. Is it directed to, quote, directed to an abstract idea? Whatever that means. The court doesn't really give us much guidance. And then they say, if it does, if it is directed to an abstract idea, then we look to see if it has, quote, unquote, substantially more. Whatever that means, the court doesn't give us any guidance. And so what happened is, after that case, when you have something like 8,500 patent examiners trying to determine whether something is patent eligible to be even enter into the system to be examined, we had huge numbers of things that were just getting rejected. So certain groups that we're examining, when the average allowance rate in the patent office is about 68%, we had some groups going down to 0 or 3%. And even the judges, Judge Newman most notably of the Court of Appeals of the Federal Circuit, said, we're losing inventions because people are uncertain to be able to protect it. And so that's, to me, in the biotech space, something that's important, something that we need to be thinking about. And it's not even on the radar of a lot of our researchers because they're so busy into the science of it, they're not thinking along those lines. So that's the role of a tech transfer, is to bridge that, get them thinking about it, make sure we have something protectable that we can then get into the real world. We don't want really interesting ideas being developed and then just dying because we can't get commercialization happening.
Yeah, we have to be able to productize the research somehow, and like, being able to protect it is key to that. So great point. Jerry, what do you see as a big concern?
Boy, that really does get you wound up, doesn't it?
Sorry, yeah, it's
Goodness. Well, I am not a lawyer, so I made a better career choice, I guess.
Smarter of the two of us here.
But I'm going to go a little bit more ground level, if you will. I mentioned changing the culture at USU. That's not to say that we don't have very innovative faculty that have been very successful in obtaining patents and generating IP. But what we want to do, we want to obviously grow that machine, that engine at USU. And so it's what I'm really hoping that I can do in this role, and how I'm thinking about this whole process at USU, is to get more faculty thinking along the lines, thinking of their research in just a slightly different way that will lead them down the path to something that is marketable. Right? And not everybody, I recognize not everybody's going to be able to do that. But I think we have quite an untapped pool of innovation at USU that just needs some support, needs a clear pathway for them. And we can really turn this engine on at USU and really start engaging industry more, engaging with the whole innovation idea with faculty. They're great at what they do. They just need to, they don't need to, but I want to help them think about their work just slightly differently, and thinking earlier on in the process of, okay, if I, either through talking with industry or, just from talking with us in the tech transfer office, figuring out how they can think about their work just a little bit differently that will ultimately produce something in the end that we can take to market. The other thing, I want 2 challenges, so that's one. The second challenge is making sure that people down here in the Wasatch Front area know that we're a thing. USU is a thing. Yes, we are, 80, 90 miles north of the U, but we are a thing, and we are generating a lot of great research, a lot of great innovative ideas, and we want to engage more with the folks who, can really help us make this happen. So we're here. Come talk to us, please.
Yeah, Utah State's fantastic, but yeah, connecting with industry, always a challenge for us. So, Jason, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I'd just echo what Brad said too as my first one. We do a lot of biomarker work, other things that could be considered diagnostics, and it is a challenge to get those protected. So that is a big issue. The other one is, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of innovation going on at the University of Utah. We've had one of our best years from a disclosure and funding standpoint. One of our challenges is these aren't ready for industry. They're more fit for a startup to go out and develop them, access resources like the SBIR program. But faculty want to stay faculty. They like doing the research, they like teaching, and they're not willing or able or interested in going off and forming a company to do this. And so one of our challenges is finding entrepreneurs and management that's interested in taking those out and really trying to realize those opportunities. So if there's any entrepreneurs in here that are looking for an idea, come talk to us.
Okay, and additional challenges I would throw out is, I think speed is always a challenge. There are a lot of things you have to do in tech transfer, and I feel like if something's important, it's inherently urgent also. So some of the things we're working on are potentially life-saving. How do you make them happen faster? I will say, in the past month, we've had, I think, 3 startup deals where from agreeing on the deal, from them saying they're interested to signing the deal was under 2 weeks. That's about as fast as you can do that, I believe. And so we're working out some of the kinks, but it's always just getting out of the way of the entrepreneurs is something we all need to do. And you might wonder why entrepreneurs go to universities. So if I understand my autumn statistics correctly, so the statistic 90% of companies fail. And if you have a medical device from a university, that sounds really hard, right? But the failure rate is 60%. So essentially, you have 4x the chance of success if you're taking a technology out of a university. So the question is why? Brad, why is that the case?
That's an interesting question. We are still working to get our spin-outs going, but I think part of it is you get that foundational research. There's a lot of good background research being done by the faculty members, and so you're having a higher success rate, some proof of kind. I know you're very good at doing proof of concept stuff and getting that launched out, which is an important part because it's very speculative stuff, and there's a lot of resources that have to be committed to make these, particularly in biospaces, happen. That's part of the reason why, sorry to go back to my hobby horse of the patent eligible subject matter issue. That's part of the problem of that is because I don't know if any people would wonder, why do we have this issue? Why did it crop up in the Alice case in the 2014s? It's a battle, this is oversimplifying it, but it's a battle between high tech, which don't want patents or want weak patents because they can rely on market share and other things, and biospace, which needs strong patents. Because when you commit like $1 billion to bring one drug to market, you need to be able to get the recuperation of that money back, and you need strong patents to do it. And so I think to get you to your point is there's just so much more money needed to be invested to make biotech space happen than it does in other spaces like high tech. And then when you have the backing of universities, it helps vet that through the process so you have a higher rate of success.
Yeah, there can be millions and millions of dollars that go into research before an entrepreneur learns about the thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jerry, thoughts? Why the higher success rate?
Well, I mean, I think working with faculty, as someone who's coming in and wanting to take a technology, spin it out into a startup company, having access to the individual who brought the idea to fruition in the first place is extremely valuable. And being able to work with that individual, because it's not like, okay, I'm done with that, and you now take it and do your thing with it. More often than not, the researchers are going to want to be involved in continuing to improve and make things better and do different things with that particular technology, take it down a different path. So having access to that brain trust, if you will, I think is a real benefit of working with universities on trying to spin out these technologies into companies.
That's an excellent point.
Totally agree.
Yeah, so I'd say one of the things is, if an entrepreneur comes to us and looks for ideas, by that point, there's either an R01 or an R21. There's already hundreds of thousands to potentially millions of dollars behind that idea. You're not starting from scratch. So I'd say that's a big part of it. The other thing is, especially at University of Utah, we've got a lot of programs to try and figure out product market fit. You've probably heard of the I-Corps program. So we try and do some of that background work on, what's the product, what's the market fit for this. And it's not perfect by any means, but it at least gets you a start, it gets you down the road, and you can have an idea for what is the market, what investors might be interested. So we try and give it that a little bit of a head start.
That's great. And the I-Corps program run by the NSF, right, is for training mostly faculty and grad students on how to do a startup company. You don't have to be at the University of Utah to use that. I think that's available to anyone in the state. Is that fair?
I think that's right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fantastic. We're just about out of time. I have one final question, unless someone has an urgent question they want to ask. We good? Okay, so lightning round question. What makes a technology most likely to succeed, to get from the university out into the marketplace where it can win? Any thoughts, Jason? Can we start with you?
The people behind it. Because like someone said, when you go to an investor and talk to them, they know you're wrong. You got to figure out how to make it apply, how to figure out what the problem is, and how to make it fit in that patient clinic workflow.
Absolutely. Jerry, thoughts?
Yeah, need. Yeah, definitely. Faculty are notorious for, not solving problems, but just creating more questions around whether or not this is actually applicable to anything. So, understanding what that true need is for whatever it is, whatever the innovation is, and making sure that it isn't just very surface level, that there is a true deep need within the market for a technology to really succeed.
Yeah. Fantastic. Brad, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd echo all that. I would also add, I think this is where our role as tech transfer becomes important, because we, as sort of objective observers, are also able to step back and say, hey, that's really interesting. We should be focusing on that. Let's put some resources on that to get that transitioned out of the lab into the real world. And so I think just having people monitoring and paying attention to what's being done in our amongst all our labs and everyone that's doing stuff is important in doing that, because then we can see stuff that should be, hey, that's good, let's get that out into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with all that. And then we all just need to change our perspective on universities. Universities are the largest, most well-featured incubators you're going to encounter. They have far more equipment and people and all kinds of resources than anyone else to get these technologies off the ground. So grateful for what you're all doing. We're out of time, so let's just thank our panel.